Hello and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about Nottingham Forest, their start to the Premier League this season, Steve Cooper and his new contract, which I think is great business by Nottingham Forest, and where I see Nottingham Forest finishing in the Premier League this season. Steve Cooper was able to bring Nottingham Forest back up to the Premier League for the first time in 23 years. After a slow start last season, Steve Cooper was appointed, got them into the top six of the championship. They were able to win the championship playoff. Nottingham Forest backed Steve Cooper and brought in over 20 new players, which is a crazy number. Most big teams we see, the big six, or any team going through a huge transition, usually at most sign 7, 8, 9 new players because over that number really changed up the squad. Nottingham Forest bought two brand new starting 11s. Since this has happened, Nottingham Forest have struggled so far in the first 8 or 9 games this season in the Premier League. They're right now sitting in 19th. They have had a very difficult time holding on to leads. They have had plenty of lineup changes. Steve Cooper's really trying to figure out what kind of the way he wants his team to play. And a lot of the media were kind of expecting Nottingham Forest to sack Steve Cooper, which I thought was crazy. And Nottingham Forest, instead of sacking him, have given him a brand new 3-year contract, which to me says that they have trusted him for the future. Now, bringing in 22 new players is a huge change, and it's not a surprise to me at all that they've struggled because when you have a starting 11 and you buy 3 or 4 new players and you have to fit them into the starting 11, the majority of the team has played together, knows each other, knows how you play. So it's easier to fit a few smaller pieces in than at one big piece. With Nottingham Forest buying so many new players, most of these players have never played together before in their lives, and it's not a surprise that even after 9 games, they have struggled to mesh. The person that needs to make them mesh is Steve Cooper. The reason I think he's the person for the job is because he was able to come into a Nottingham Forest team last year, which was struggling greatly in the championship, get them playing the way he wanted them to play, was able to get them into the top six. And not only that, but they won a playoff, which is crazy. Uh, Nottingham Forest have very, very loyal fans and a great fan base. They are absolutely beloved, and I was thrilled to see them come back up into the Premier League. Uh, and personally, I do think that they're going to be able to stay up. I predicted it before the season started. I thought that they would be able to stay up, and it's not a surprise to me at all that they're sitting in the relegation zone right now. Because we're only 9 games in, and there's a lot of time left. And Steve Cooper will get this team to play the way he wants them to play. Now, we're gonna show 2 games. We're gonna talk about the Bournemouth game from a few weeks ago, and then the Aston Villa game yesterday. Some of the changes that Steve Cooper has made, and what players I believe will be the most important in Nottingham Forest staying up in the Premier League this season. So this is the Bournemouth game a few weeks ago. Bournemouth was able to beat Nottingham Forest 3-2. It was a really great game, but you can see the way Nottingham Forest set up here. It's a 3-4-2-1 basically. Nottingham Forest bringing in all of these players brought in a lot of players that are kind of Premier League known. Jesse Lingard, for example, played for Manchester United, has played for West Ham, played really, really well for West Ham. People were kind of shocked that he went to Nottingham Forest on a free transfer. It's only a year contract, so it's not an extended period of time. But it was kind of a statement signing by Nottingham Forest, and then Nottingham Forest just continued to make these statement signings. Nico Williams, another Liverpool fullback, young player, but I think he's going to be a star, either for Nottingham Forest or another Premier League club at some point, maybe even Liverpool, because of his ability. I mean, he's young, but he's growing. You can see the player that he can be. His ability to play the ball in through crosses, and also he just continues to work on the field. He is up and down and up and down, and it's really impressive. To be honest with you, I think he's been Nottingham Forest's second best player in the season, behind Morgan Gibbs White, who I think was the one of the signings of the summer. This kid is special. His What he can do on the ball, if he could finish a little bit more, be a little bit more accurate finishing, he would be bought. He wouldn't be on Nottingham Forest. He would be on Manchester United, Manchester City, Chelsea, one of the big six, because he is that good. And I think he's gonna be at that stage at some point in the next few years. I think he will be playing for a top a big six club. Uh, I think he will go for a very large fee as well. You can just see how special he is. He glides on the ball, great dribbler, can really pass, has the ability to play beautiful free kicks and set pieces. Really special player. And you can see these players in this team, and you sit there and say, well, why are they in 19th? Because I'm speaking very highly of them, and it's because they just haven't meshed yet, as I spoke about earlier. And in this Bournemouth game, this was kind of one of the big things. It was kind of like Bournemouth were everyone's 20th place team to start the year. After firing Scott Parker in Bournemouth, everyone was like, oh, firing Scott Parker, huge mistake, blah, blah, blah. Bournemouth have played really well since then, are a good team. But Nottingham Forest, I think, are kind of you got to let these teams kind of grow in the Premier League and see where they're at. Bournemouth are in the top 10 right now. Nottingham Forest are 19th. It's just kind of how the season has gone. But you can see here by the starting lineup, players that are playing. Renan Lodi came in from Atletico Madrid. Dean Henderson, who I think is a really good goalkeeper, another player that I do believe at some point will be playing for a big six club. He did play at Manchester United. Manchester United went with David De Gea this year. Dean Henderson went to Nottingham Forest. I think he's a great goalkeeper for them. I'd love to see him. I think he'll end up at a Tottenham. He might even end up back at Manchester United at some point. But to look at the way they set up, you can understand that they have struggled greatly over the past few weeks. So if you look at this game and the stats of this game, Nottingham Forest had the majority of the possession, had more shots, same shots on target. And looking back on it, this was actually a pretty fair game. However, this is against a Bournemouth team that a lot of people thought Nottingham Forest should beat. Steve Cooper has totally changed things up, and now we look at the game yesterday against Aston Villa. Aston Villa are, in my opinion, a top 8 squad in the country. They have super players in many different positions, and Steve Cooper decided to change the lineup up. And, I mean, talk about a totally different lineup. Majority of the players are not the same as in the other game. Emmanuel Dennis who came in from Watford from last season, who's a very good player. Morgan Gibbs White is obviously still in the team because he's brilliant. I was able to get the assist for Emmanuel Dennis off the set piece. They brought in Serge Aurier, who played for Tottenham for years. And this game was a lot closer. Even though I think that Aston Villa probably should have won this game, Nottingham Forest were able to kind of keep Nottingham Forest from doing, or Aston Villa from doing the things that they do best. And it ended up being a much needed draw for Steve Cooper and Nottingham Forest to keep the lost slide from continuing. And it kind of put the pressure more on Steven Gerrard, which I'm sure I will do a video on at some point in the future. Steve Cooper has been playing with multiple different things in the team: lineups, players, combinations, partnerships. And he's trying to figure out what works, and he will figure it out. He will figure out what is best. And especially with them giving him the new 3-year contract, they're giving him the ability and the time to make mistakes and not sit there and say, hey, it's been 7 or 8 games. You haven't figured this out yet. You're gone. A lot of teams do that. We've seen Watford do that in the past. Chelsea does. Now, Chelsea is a little bit different because they're a much bigger club, a much higher ceiling, much higher expectations. But teams getting rid of managers sooner than they should. Nottingham Forest is saying, hey, you got it. This is your team. Barring a disaster, you're going to be the coach. You're going to figure it out. You can play the players you want to play. They brought in a brand new sporting director who also is putting his faith in Steve Cooper. And I don't really know who you're going to get to be the manager of Nottingham Forest who's better than Steve Cooper. The fans absolutely love him for bringing him back up. He's a very popular manager, just because of it's hard to come into a club, get the team to totally turn around, get them in the championship playoff, and then bring them to the Premier League. That's difficult in itself. He's done that and is now make a whole new kind of team his own and get them to be Premier League proven, ready, not just battling to stay out of the bottom three, but to be battling towards the middle of the table. I'm sure he would love to. Watching what Brighton have done is probably something that a lot of teams want to do, and I think that's something that Nottingham Forest would love to do. They don't want to not be in the Premier League for 23 years again. They want to be in the Premier League for the next 23 years and past that. And I think that with the money they've spent, it's also one of those things that the money they've spent, they have to stay in the Premier League. They have to continue to do the best they can, because the Premier League is where the money is, and that's where they have this. The City Ground is a beautiful stadium. Their fans deserve Premier League football, and for the most part, I think a lot of people are rooting for them to stay up. You could tell by the momentum of this game that Aston Villa definitely had more chances. However, Nottingham Forest got the draw that they needed. They had half the shots, but to me, the statistics matter to a point. If you watch the way Nottingham Forest played yesterday, they played differently. They played a different game that worked for them. And it will change from team to team. There will be teams that Nottingham Forest will come out, attack, push, do everything. And there will be teams where they have to sit back. Last year, Nottingham Forest was able to beat Tottenham, beat Arsenal in the Cup. Things that with a totally different team, but there's more talent on this team now than there was last season. So Steve Cooper can beat the bigger sides. And I think he will beat a bigger team this year. I don't think it's going to be Manchester City, but I think he will beat a bigger team this year. At some point, I think they'll play better, especially after the World Cup. And I think, if I had to guess right now, I think Nottingham Forest will finish 17th or 16th. I do think they're going to stay up. I think it's going to be close. It's kind of hard right now because a lot of the teams at the lower part of the table are really struggling right now. Leicester, for example, Wolves just fired real large. So there's no real definitive worst team. A lot of people said Nottingham Forest. I don't think so. I think they just need to give it some time. A lot of people think Leicester, kind of the same situation. Leicester have a lot of good players, but what's next for Brendan Rodgers? What's next for the future? But I think Nottingham Forest will stay up. I just hope that this draw against Aston Villa is the push for them to continue to go on the path that they want to find the way they want to play. And I think it will get better. I think there will still be some tough times ahead. I think they'll be in the relegation zone. I do think they'll be in the relegation zone up through the World Cup. But I'm thinking after the World Cup, giving it more time, that month where a lot of the players are, the World Cup's going on. They don't have a lot of players in the World Cup, so I'm hoping that time will allow the team to kind of mesh and bond. And then after the World Cup, I'm hoping to see a different Nottingham Forest team. But I'm excited for it. I think Steve Cooper is a really good manager. I think he's the right man for the job at Nottingham Forest. I'm super excited to see what happens. But I'm backing them to stay up. I think they will. And I will do a video at some point on where I think teams will finish and my kind of predictions. I did predictions by myself kind of before the season started. And in those predictions, I think I had Nottingham Forest in 14th. Think enough about how long it was going to take them to kind of connect and mesh. But I'm thinking that I'll do another video on predictions maybe in after next weekend about where I think everyone's going to finish in the Premier League, and then we'll look back at them as the kind of season goes on. But right now, I'm still thinking Nottingham Forest are going to stay up, and I think signing Steve Cooper to that long-term 3-year contract was brilliant business, and I hope that he's able to get the team playing the way he wants them to play. So that's going to do it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back again later this week with another video.